broadening out to the Big Ten, I think this league is extremely strong. I've seen enough to think that there are probably five teams that are top 15 to 20 in the nation. We get to see Iowa and Penn State, Steve, this week. How do you size up the conference based on what you've seen in the past? And where do you think Ohio State figures in? I made the comment a couple of weeks ago that everybody else was playing the same brand of game, running game defense, and Ohio State was pass happy and not playing defense, that they were the outlier. But if they could pull it all together, they're, of course, still the most talented roster.
Yeah, they're going the Big 12 route right now with all passing game, a little bit of running game, and no defense, it seems. Now, we know they're coming together defensively at least a little bit. And, it's incremental. It's getting better each week, and the guys are getting experience. I think that's the most important thing. All you can base all these conference comparisons on is who did you play in the non-conference and how did you do? Well, Iowa beat Iowa State, which was good. Penn State beat Auburn. That was at home. That was good. Michigan State went down to Miami. Miami has not turned out to be a very good team, but it was a decisive 3-touchdown win on the road for Michigan State. So that was good for them. All of them took, full advantage of their MAC games or their Conference USA or American or whoever they played.
Except Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota didn't, obviously. Michigan, beat a bad Washington team at home. That's fine. In some regards, the teams are ranked where they are kind of by default because there have been more ranked teams that have lost in the first 5 weeks than at any time in the modern era of college football. So, and you look at teams that were predicted really high in the preseason that now have 2 losses. In Wisconsin's case, 3 losses. So there's a lot of them out there. North Carolina, Iowa State, a lot of teams that were picked ahead of Michigan and Michigan State have fallen completely out of the rankings. And now here's Michigan State. Neither of them ranked to start the season on the basis of a 5-0 start. Some good, some real good, some meh, of their body of work. They've by osmosis, they've just kind of, as you fill out your poll each week, you look at who you had in your poll last week. 7 and 8 lost. So we got to drop them at least down to 14 or 15. And Michigan was 12. Well, we got to move them up to 10. I mean, that's just kind of how it works. And in this case, they've worked their way up. I mean, there's other teams. I mean, you look at Wake Forest. What are they, 5-0? If you switch the names on Wake Forest and Michigan, then it'd be flipped. It's just kind of the way. I mean, Wake Forest is barely ranked probably, and you look at it and you're like, why is that? But it's just the way it is, I guess. But Ohio State's up there because everybody knows how great they've recruited, how great the talent is. People have watched them on offense and know that they're, literally unstoppable. It seems like Rutgers, which came into the game with a national top 15 defense, had nothing. They had no ability to stop Ohio State from scoring almost at will last week in that first half. And then Ohio State called off the dogs after scoring to start the second half, just kind of said, okay, that's enough. And, in a conference game against a team you're going to play every year, you don't necessarily need to, put your high heel in their eyeball. But, I look at 2 years ago, Ohio State played Maryland. The score was 73-14. There was some scuttlebutt that Maryland may have been involved with Mike Loxley, or I don't know if it was him or somebody involved with the Maryland program in reporting Chase Young getting some extra benefits that cost him. He wasn't able to play in that game because of it. And Ohio State took out some of its, quote, frustrations a little bit on Maryland. So don't get on Ryan Day's bad side. He's certainly not going to let up against Michigan a whole lot, but he did. I think he kind of called off the dogs last week against Rutgers, and that last 20 minutes was kind of a filibuster of let's get out of here. I said to somebody at halftime, it was 45-6. Can we get the OHSAA to rule on a running clock here by consent of both coaches in the second half? But I think you give the Big Ten credit. it is where it is. They're going to start playing each other with Iowa Penn State this week. I presume Iowa's going to win because the game's being played at Iowa City, and they don't lose there very often if they've got a good team. They don't lose very often at home. But give Penn State a puncher's chance. Clifford is really starting to play great football. I would give Penn State the edge on offense, and Iowa maybe the edge on defense, and call the rest of it a wash. I guess I don't know, but. It's going to be a heck of a game. I'm hoping we get our game done to where we can, wrap up whatever it is we need to do afterwards and head somewhere to watch the second half. Because with those Fox 4.5-hour games, it works out pretty good to be able to watch a second half a lot of times.
Yeah, I think I'll talk about that Penn State Iowa game and then the Big Ten in general. I think that Penn State goes into that game kind of falling into the same trap that Maryland did. Maryland can't run the ball. Penn State can't run the ball. I mean, Penn State's a better rushing team than Maryland is, but I think that you give Iowa a team that's largely one-dimensional, and Iowa's going to do a good job of punishing you for that. So I like Iowa to win that game, but the conference in general has played very well. The West is still kind of a mess outside of Iowa. Wisconsin is not very good. People are saying Nebraska is on its way up right now. I'm not going to get all that excited about beating Northwestern. We've already kind of determined this is a crappy Northwestern year. But you look at the East, and I think Rutgers has kind of been exposed. I think Maryland's in the process of being exposed. But you end up having your usual four. You have Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State. And I think it's really going to come down to what these teams are able to do against one another and what that ends up looking like. And I think that you can look at all four of them and find some very obvious flaws, but then you can also find some things that they do extremely well. And, I think that that the Big Ten as a conference is right there in terms of being the top conferences. And I think the Big Ten East is far and away, in my opinion, the most competitive division in football this year.
Any college football fan is going to tell you that the SEC is the best conference, and I understand that. It has played the best over recent years, even going back to 15 years, and we know what the recruiting rankings are, and we know what the NFL draft selections say. But if you just, to Kevin's final point, you just take what the performance has been on the field, and to Steve's point, I hate when people try to judge the strength of conferences once they start playing each other. That only tells us if there's division between the teams in the conference, whether it's top heavy or balanced. That's all that tells us. It doesn't tell us how strong the conference is, because every conference plays 500 against itself. So that only tells us the division between the teams within the conference. You can only go by 9 conference games, and there's really nothing to separate the SEC and the Big Ten in regards to the way they've performed outside the conference. I think the numbers are 8-6 for the Big Ten against the Power 5 and Notre Dame, and it's 6-5 for the SEC. And nobody's really beaten anyone that substantial outside of Iowa State. Auburn would be the Big Ten's big wins, and I guess Texas would be the best win for the SEC. Texas, Louisville, there's not a whole lot there.